Hey y'all, it's Andrew Couch here, and in this Tidy Tuesday video, I'm going to conclude my GGplot2 video with a video on common GGplot2 extensions. So what's really nice about ggplot is that you can basically create any plot you want with a little bit of fiddling. But luckily, since ggplot has been around here for a decent amount of time, we've actually had um, other people work on and creating kind of these helper packages to create some harder plots. So if you go on the ggplot website, you can click on extensions, and they have a nice little like official page where they have some pretty common ggplot libraries that can extend it to more plots that are easier to create, just because you just have to use these simple helper functions, and they're kind of like verified, so they're relatively stable. But as you can see, there's 100 registered extensions available to explore. That's a lot of packages. I don't think I even know if I could name 100 packages, but I do use a few packages that I think are pretty useful. Um, and I think they're both useful in in a data science and analytics perspective. But also, if you are using ggplot to do like data journalism, or you're writing an article and you want to include some cool plots, or if you're doing a lot of presentations, I have a few packages that are actually pretty useful to use in like everyday data visualizations. So we're gonna jump into uh, our Markdown, and the first package I kind of want to go over is the GG themes package. So this is just basically like the themes or the colors of your ggplot objects, and it's very nice. When I was getting into data visualization, I really used GG themes a lot just because they had a lot of cool kind of themes that you can do. Um, they borrow from a lot of famous, data journals or data magazines or whatever. So like things like The Economist, 538. They have like a high charts theme. I think they might have maybe they I think they have also like a Tableau theme too. So there's a yeah right here it's Tableau theme. So you know, this type of stuff is actually very nice because it can make your plots look so much better with just simple color coordination. Additionally, if you're working at some organization and they have, like a corporate color scheme, you can actually create your own themes. So I'm not going to go over creating your own themes just because it's not very interesting. You're just kind of specifying specific like hex codes for each type of component. But I'll go over a few of the themes that I think are pretty nice. So let's open up the Tidyverse. Oops, Tidyverse, and then we'll do GG themes. Cool. So I'm just gonna create, I guess, a generic plot. Maybe we'll do a ggplot, like a pairwise scatter. So we'll do that. Y equals sepal width, and maybe we'll do a color equals species. So, from my previous video about creating just some simple plots, we're going to create a generic scatter plot. And what we can simply do is add theme, and we use like theme economist. And as you can see, it kind of replicates what the economist charts look like. There are different variations too, I think. So there's like a white one, which I think is like their old like 2003 style. But um, yeah, so we have a pretty nice chart. Kind of looks like the Economist. You can also do some other themes. So like theme 538. So again, it kind of looks like just a theme minimal, but there's a few variations with the coordinates and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy. So I think just looking at themes in general is actually pretty fun to use, especially if you want to create some, maybe some more centered products. So if you want to maybe make an R Shiny dashboard and kind of have it replicate Tableau, you could use these helper functions. But again, it's a pretty straightforward package. I didn't want to spend too much time on it just because it's just changing colors. There are also a few different add-ons to GG themes. I think there's like a Wes Anderson palette that you can download too. But again, uh, pretty good way or pretty fast way to change your plot and make it look a little bit nicer, or kind of a copycat of some other very famous news sources. Okay, So that's the GG themes. Another package that I don't really use too much, but it is extremely useful if you're doing any plots for like an article or like a web or just for like a website and stuff like that. Um, One common thing that you might run into is you have a lot of groups and you kind of want to just plot one one component of that one item from that group while keeping everything together. So right here we have a bunch of types, and say we want to just isolate one of these types. It's actually fairly difficult to do it in ggplot. But luckily we have GG highlight, which basically meant to highlight certain visual or certain groups from a ggplot object. So right here we can just do it right now. Um, Additionally, what it also has is nice little like end this like end label, which again is you can do it with like GM label, but it requires a lot of data manipulation. Where this one you just kind of include it. So we'll just do a little overview of how to do that. So actually, I'm gonna put these packages in here, and when I'm done with this video, I'll put all of them commented out so you can install or download all of them. Cool. So we'll do a GG highlight. And with GG highlight, I'll just kind of demonstrate how you work with it. So I think we'll just use the economics data set, maybe. Okay, they don't use the economics data set, but that's fine. Let's say you want to, plot out all these components. So we'll do like a pivot longer. We'll ggplot this out first just to see what it looks like. And I pretty much know what it's going to look like because we're not on the same scale, because we're kind of inadvertently doing this. So what we can do is group it by the name and just scale it. So value is equal to scale value, and then we can do a ungroup. Okay. So we have our economic components. Now what we just need to do is add GG highlight, and with GG highlight, you can't see that. You're essentially just saying like what groups you want to filter in. So in this case, we can filter in like give it a list of values for the name. So let's go to that. We'll say plus GG highlight. We'll say name is equal to I don't know, unemployed. Right. So then it kind of grays everything out, and then it colors out the thing you want to do. I wonder if you can do. I wonder if you can do a list. So let's see if you can do that. So name is in unemployed and was it UEMED? Yep. So you can do like lists. So essentially, what you're doing is like filtering what you want to highlight. So again, very useful very useful package to use. I think there are some ways to kind of customize, the highlighting and the opacity of it. But again, just going through it, we can see, it's not just line charts. You can do it with basically any other geom or ggplot object. So yeah, you can also say like use direct label equals false, stuff like that. Again, don't want to go too deep into it because I still think it's a pretty simple package. But again, it's a very useful package to do when you're creating some like isolated plots or you want to like highlight something, which explains the name. You can do it by calculate per facet, and there is some logic that goes into it. But that's definitely kind of domain specific for your problem. Okay, cool. I also want to go over a few packages that I use probably a decent amount, and I've also used in past videos, and it's gonna be GG Ally. GG Ally is probably one of my favorite packages that I use. I definitely use it basically every time I do some type of EDA, and I'm like pulling from some database, and I kind of want to see just the overall relationship of the data points. And instead of going and creating a bunch of redundant plots, GG Ally kind of has our backs, and we can just do like GG Duo. Give it the iris data set. and it'll basically do the plotting for us for like at least common things. So pairwise, it's essentially pairwise plots. So it's smart enough to understand, discrete and continuous variables. So we can see how obviously it's like it's like a correlation matrix. So we have like steeple length compared to steeple length. We expect 1-to-1 correlation, and we can see the relationships right here. They throw a nice little like GM smooth. I'm assuming using like Lois. You can change that too with different settings. Um, but as we look at into species, we can see that it's able to make the distribution of the plot. So we can see like, hey, these species. When we actually go up here and expand it, yep. So we can see how we have Setosa, versicolor. Oh, actually, you can't see it, but Setosa, versicolor, and virginica, and see how the distribution is different different sepal lengths. There's obviously the length of it kind of dictates the species. There's another one called GG pairs, which does a similar thing because it still does like the pairwise interactions, but we can see that there's a few more like statistical stuff. So we get some summary statistics from it. We see the distribution of the data. We can still see our scatter plots showing the relationships, but we also get some correlation components, right? And obviously we still have the histograms. So GGAlly also has, a few other things. We have kind of a scat mat, which is for only continuous variables. So, you can kind of customize the GGAlly objects and stuff like that. So there is definitely a bunch of comparisons we can do. In this case, I think they do. Uh, there's a yeah, there's a you can do some customization on it. For me, I usually don't show people these plots like for presentations just because there's a lot of information that's being brought up, but I mostly do it to kind of like isolate things I want to look deeper into. um I think there's one more thing that I think is somewhat useful, but I'm not sure if I can get it. So where is it? Oh yeah, GG bivariate. Let's see if we have any bivariate data. um yeah, I think that show it. It's one variable name. Okay, maybe I can do this with GG bivariate. The iris dataset outcome equals species. Will I do it? How do I do this? Okay, I thought. Right, so we can kind of see uh something so if we're trying to predict make a model, we can use GG bivariate to kind of get these interactions between the thing we want to predict and the features. So if you're doing some like cattle competitions or like I guess what was slice, I think slice is over now. That would have been kind of a useful function to use when you want to pick out some features to use for a model. Cool. Again, there are a lot of functions in here. I definitely don't know all of them. I've seen some with like GG coefficients, but now that we have tidy models, we kind of have some ways that we can plot out our model like results or model features using the VIP package. But if you want to do more like linear models, I think, or GLMs, this can give you it. Again, not too bad. There are some network plots. I've never really used them too much, but I've always used I think the IMAP package, but you can still do that. But again, there's a lot of things that we can do with GGAlly, and it's pretty nice to use. You can customize and get a large amount of plots with literally like one line of code, which would actually take me like 10 minutes to actually plot out if I wanted to do all this stuff. So very useful function, makes things very fast for your like data science workflow. Cool. Let's see here. So another package that I really like using, I actually use this package a lot now since I've been working, is the GG Ridges package. And they used to be called like I think Joy Division plots, but now we call them like Ridgeline plots. And it's essentially like a GM density, but we can kind of facet it on the y-axis. So this is pretty good. Let's actually go over it. So library, oops, library, and we'll say GG ridges. Okay. Cool. And I don't know what do I want to do. I guess we'll do the iris data set. So we can just do a we'll just, let's see here, mutate across species, and we'll scale it. Mutate across fns equals. Okay, we'll just I just want to scale these variables. So title dot width. Uh-oh. Mutate what is it? Across where, or I think I said is numeric, and then I can do scale. Cool. And then we'll do a pivot longer. Actually, I didn't really need it. Minus. I think I really didn't need to do all that, but again, different way to skin a cat. So in this case, we wanted to do our value. And if we just do this, where we say like color equals name and do a GM density, we can see that they're stacked. And they're stacked by name. We can see the color of each distribution. What we just need to do is switch out to y equals name, and then we'll say density, and say like ridges, right? And now we have our ridgeline plot. You can also say like, I think color is equal to species, or fill. Oops, fill equals species, and we can now see actually a pretty interesting plot comparing, all of our features with our the distribution of things that we want to predict, or at least the species for right now. And I actually use this a lot. For me, this is actually useful when we're plotting out like simulations and looking at the distribution of outcomes. For me, I also do it. I'll use GG ridges a lot with Bayesian analysis. So when I'm using the BRMS package and getting like a posterior distribution, I can basically plot out the distribution of my parameters. That's actually very useful for me because I can kind of show people the uncertainty of some effects and some of the model outcomes. So for me, I actually use it a lot. I also think it's a pretty sweet looking plot. There are some few things that we can do. Like you can add you can do like a gradient too, like that. You just kind of have to change the some of the scale. So maybe I can do it right here where I can do the fill species. We'll just do that, and then what is it? I have to say fill equals yes. So instead of saying the fill equals like the value, we have to say stat value. At, or stat x, and then we have to do GM density ridges gradient, right? So now we have a nice little gradient, and then we can do like a scale vertex C, right? One thing I'm actually interested in, maybe we could do like a like we could use oops. Oh, what the one thing we can also do, I think, is add like a theme. So we could say theme I don't know, Wall Street Journal. I wonder if that'll mess everything up. So we have Wall Street Journal. I think that actually looks pretty bad. So we'll do 538. Right. So 538 plot. Again, doesn't really look like 538 plot just because it's just, the same colors. But right. We can see how we can combine a lot of these other packages with each other. Since they're all just ggplot objects, they can interact well with each other pretty quickly. Let me go back here. There is another plot where we can create what's called like rain cloud plots. Let me see where it's at. Yeah, so we can do like rain cloud plots where you can basically plot the GM rug underneath it. I think it actually makes the plot kind of busy. You can also make a cheese plot, which is very funny, but I think isn't a good plot. Um, so you can do that. Yeah, you just have to add in this thing. So as you can see that, for me, I'm perfectly fine with copy and pasting because they already did the work for me. So we can see how we have like the distribution of it or whatever. Again, I don't really like it, but some people might. So I'm actually delete that, or I'll comment. I'll comment it out. Right, comment this. Control Shift C to comment chunk. So we now have the plot. So I'll say values. Cool. So obviously this still is a simple plot or a simple package. We're just using GM density ridges. It basically acts as GM density, but we have a few more parameters that we can adjust to make the plot look a little bit nicer. Cool. Yeah, actually, I kind of like that plot. That's actually not too bad. But we can actually go to the next few packages. And these packages basically go around text. I know we went over some themes, some highlighting, which kind of uses like GM label. But I think actually working with text or working with text in general with ggplot is probably the weakest feature of it. So let me actually work with this. I think we'll use the empty cars because I think they use that as a thing. So I'll say, was it row names equals, I think that's a model. Yeah, cool. So now we have like some plots. So we have like some, I think, car stuff. So we'll just do y equals, I don't know, horsepower. Sure. I don't know anything about cars, so um we just want to create a simple plot of miles per gallon. Cool. So we have miles per gallon and horsepower. And then we would want to add our car models. So in this case, we'll say like label is equal to model. And then we'll do like a GM label. And we can see that it's not doing what we really want it to do. Right? There's so many overlapping labels. They're also over the point, which is annoying. So we don't really know what this Maserati Bora really is, if it's like on 15 and stuff like that, since the text is like that. Luckily, we have what's called GGrepel, and this basically solves the problem with GM label, which repels the text. So we can do that right here. We'll say library GGrepel, and then we'll do the same thing. But what's nice about this is we just say GM label repel, and we can see that it's like repelled out. We can see that it automatically adds these lines. It is adjustable, so we can go back here, GM label repel, and as you see, there are so many ways to adjust it. You can do padding, you can do the min segment length. So if I want to have lines for everything, I think I can just say min dot segment length equals like, I don't know, 1 or 0, and that might remove it. So yeah, 0. So we have all these labels. Again, pretty useful. If you don't like the labels, we can do GM text repel. Right, so they're kind of right next to each other. Maybe I can say like 5, make it ridiculous. Or okay, yeah. So 0. There are also ways that we can basically force the labels to be at a certain point. I think they have pretty good examples in here. Right, so you can do GM text repel and then add another data point where you're kind of isolating it. Where's the example? Yeah, you can do some nudge with we can do some nudging too. So we have this nice, like, was it a parallel plot and stuff like that. You can also add like little curves with segment curvature. So I don't really want to go through all those parameters. Again, it's kind of useful, but for me to go over it and like do these fine adjustments, it's like 10 minutes of me adjusting, things like 0.1 or 0.2. not very interesting for this video, and I want to make this video pretty fast. So the next package is the GGText package. I use this package mostly to do some adjustments to like the title, because it allows us to do some, I think, like HTML formatting on it. So it's actually hard to get like so for example, for this, like when we're plotting out like a bar chart, sometimes people like it when we have the bar charts axis labels to correspond with the color. Um, and it's actually not. I don't think it's possible to do it in ggplot natively. So you have to use the GGText package. So we'll just do that, GGText, and I'll do the same thing with iris. So I'll do species y equals people dot length gm box plot, and I'll do a oops, I forgot to do color. So I'll say color is equal to species, right? Cool. So what we can do is just add our labs. So I'll say title is equal to like comparing the Tosa, versicolor, and virginica, right? And what we can do is we can basically use the HTML format to customize our text. In this case, I just kind of copy and paste it because I don't want to type everything out. It's just a span. Okay, we'll just do that. Right, and what this is saying is like this is our HTML thing. Anything in between these two spans. So this thing is like we want to change that color. Um, so we'll just say, was it the Tosa? And then we'll say versicolor. Virginica, versicolor is green and blue. And then I'll just copy and paste this in. Versicolor, green Setosa. Okay, cool. And one thing we have to do is add in this thing right here. Since we're changing our title, we just have to add in the element text box simple. And that's a way for it to, I think, like kind of say to the plot that we're going to be assessing the text from like a different we're going to assess the text using HTML instead of ggplot's like native way to interpret it. So as you can see, comparing Setosa, Versicolor, and Virginica, the colors aren't matched perfectly. We can use like hex codes, but I don't really know the hex codes for that ggplot's default colors. So that's something you might want to look up. Maybe I'll write it down when I upload this video. But that's basically what I use GGText for. Again, if you're like a data journalism and you're a data journalist and you're creating a plot, I think most of the time people will just create the plot and then they'll actually do the fine tuning of the text and stuff like that in like Adobe Illustrator or some type of other, actual like Photoshop thing. Same with the lines and stuff like that. At least that's what I've learned when I was listening to a Zoom call with like 538 data journalists. So yeah. I hope you guys like this video. I know I went kind of fast, but I think these packages are pretty useful for someone who's starting out using ggplot. They are very useful for, not just data scientists and analysts, but also people who, are just working with data in general. So definitely look into it. One interesting thing I do think is a good way to practice ggplot though is basically creating these plots using base ggplot instead of using these helper packages. So that's a good way to practice plotting. So one way to do it is like we'll just create this plot, create this plot, create this plot when you're starting out and kind of see how they interact with each other. So that's it for this video. I am gonna start recording the time series video on forecasting, so I'm pretty excited for that. But until then, I'll see you guys next time and tidy on.